Hey Ottawa, here's your Monday Market Snapshot for the Ottawa Real Estate Market for April 3rd, 2023. And since we're not going to get the monthly stats for a couple more days, I've included a few slides at the end of this presentation to give you a sneak peek of what's happened at our end March stats. My name is Annalee Rice and I'm a realtor here in Ottawa with Royal LePage Performance Realty. And I hope you find these weekly updates useful. First off, citywide, the number of active listings dropped to just below 1,500 this week. This was mainly because we saw an increase to the number of sales this week. It was almost a 27% jump in sales as compared to last week. Sales were up across the property types. This graph shows us the shift well. As we see, the green represents the active listings. It's slightly down from last week, but the orange, which is the conditional sales, and the red, which is the firm sales this week, are both up, which means that on the whole, we saw almost 2,000 properties either actively listed, conditionally, or firmly sold this week. That's about a 25% jump since what we saw at the beginning of the year, which you see was just above 1,500 properties. This graph shows us the new listings, which is the yellow, versus the red, which are the solds. So we see the solds are starting to climb, and this week the new listings were down a little bit. So we had 371 properties listed this week. There was 82% of those, which was 304 properties, were new listings to the market, and 18% of the 371 were properties that were being relisted from a previous listing. Of the 304 listings, that was lower than last week, but I believe last week was a bit of a post-March break jump. And just to note, I do think that this week coming, we're going to see fewer listings again, just because we're moving into not only Easter, but also we've got Ramadan. So it's affecting a lot of people right now. The number of properties selling with no conditions, which is the red, is still starting to creep up slightly. This week it was 27% of the properties that had sold. Of the properties that sold this week, 24% of the properties were only on the market for 7 days or less. That's up from 19% last week. We'll have to see whether or not that's a trend or just another little jump. And the second thing is that 65% of the homes were sold in 30 days or less, which is marginally more than last week. It's staying pretty steady so far, but we do expect it to increase as the days on market come down. Okay, now we can zoom into the different areas of the city for some closer details. First off, we have the central urban region of the city. We see that the number of active listings is down across property types, and the number of sales was up across property types. This pretty much mirrors what we saw citywide, but most notably, we see the number of detached homes increased significantly, almost over 30%, and the number of condominiums jumped significantly as well. In Canada and Stittsville this past week, they seem to do the opposite of what the rest of the city did. We see that the active listings were actually up for detached homes and townhomes, just slightly, but still up. And the number of sales was actually pretty flat for all property types. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we see slight decreases to the number of homes listed actively for sale right now. This is more in line with what we're seeing across the city this week. And sales were up across property types, but most importantly, most notably for the townhomes. If you look at the stats there were 22 townhomes that sold this week. That's double what there was last week. And considering that there's only 41 townhomes for sale in Barrhaven, 22 sales in 1 week is very significant. And in Orleans, we see no real increase in the number of active listings across property types. In fact, for condominiums, the number of properties actively listed actually dropped. For sales, for detached homes, they were exactly the same as last week, and townhomes dropped back down below what they were last week, which was a bit of a bump last week. The condominium sales were pretty strong this week. Here are the detailed statistics for the detached homes. The numbers didn't change a whole lot this week, although I do expect that with the continued number of new listings across the city, we will start to see the days on market for the actively listed properties start to drop. The days on the market for townhome sales in the suburbs continues to be quite low. It was 20 days for both Barrhaven, Riverside South, and Orleans. Canada's average this week was significantly higher at 52, but that was because there were 3 properties that had sold that had been on the market for more than 140 days. I looked into those 3 properties, and 2 of them had originally been listed for over $100,000 more than what they ended up selling for. And I use that as a good example of not pricing your property correctly in the first place. Condominiums are still taking a little bit longer than freehold properties to sell. But I do see that the number of properties selling is increasing. So maybe we'll start seeing a shift to the market and quicker sales coming in the months ahead. Okay, here, as promised, are some stats on month to month and how our market is actually changing. So this chart is a really macro view. What I'm doing is I'm sharing the detached, semi-detached, townhome freehold. So the top 3 lines, red, blue, and orange, are all freehold properties. And then the green and the purple are condo townhomes for green and condo apartments for purple. And so this chart is showing us the average sale price of each of those property types since the beginning of 2019. So you can see the increases, the last few months have been increasing for the detached and the townhomes. And you can see that condos have been rather flat. And so here is the final slide I'll share is the month-to-month stats. So this is February 2023 for those 5 different property types, and March 2023, and the percent increase. Now, if you recall, we had about a 5% increase in the freehold properties last month from January to February. And so I don't expect we're going to see quite that much because the detached homes is 1.7% up, but the townhomes and semi-detached, although they're higher, 5.1 and 6.9, they are a smaller number of properties and lower prices. So I think overall we're probably going to see about a 2.5% increase in the average sale price from February to March. And for condominiums, similarly, we see a drop in the condo row townhomes and an increase in the condo apartments. But again, there's a lot more condo apartments that sell than there are row homes. So I would expect that we'll probably see about a 2% increase month-to-month stats. Now you can check back in a couple days when I release those stats from the Ottawa Real Estate Board. Okay, so if you find these updates informative, please make sure you don't miss any future ones. I post these every Monday for the weekly stats, and of course I give monthly stats every month when we get those numbers out from the board. Follow me on my YouTube channel, Your Ottawa Realtor, or you can check out on Instagram or my Facebook page. And please let me know if there's things that you'd like to see in future videos. Have a great week.